Here's our paper back from Christina Stead. She's a high school teacher at West End Secondary School. So we asked, what kind of female role models did you have as a child? And our reply was, my mother and my grandmother were my role models. My mother worked as a full-time nurse, and my grandmother was a stay-at-home mom and doctor's wife. What kind of male role models did you have as a child? Her father was an elementary school teacher, and he was her primary role model. He was an excellent role model as a parent and as a teacher. And she also had a favorite grade 7 teacher, Mr. Dow, who was very kind and took the time to get to know all of the students. So here we asked Christina, what are some ways you believe sexist ideologies enforced by our society have affected your outlook on certain things? And our reply is, certainly. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, there were sexist ideologies. Girls would play Barbie, date boys, get married, and have kids, and I was fortunate that my parents always set the expectation that my siblings and I should and would go to university to get a degree that would enable us to support ourselves independently. This next question is, what are some ways you believe sexist ideologies enforced by our society have affected your outlook on certain things? And please be specific. Certainly. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, there were sexist ideologies. Girls would play with Barbies, date boys, get married, and have kids. I was fortunate that my parents always set the expectations that my siblings and I would go to university to get a degree and would enable us to support ourselves independently. And our next question is, have you noticed any different treatment in work or professional environments as a woman or towards women? And we got a reply. Certainly, when I was a teen and in my early 20s, I saw some differences in treatment. Things were improving, but there was lots of room for more improvement. I worked at a popular restaurant. The girls were dessert girls, hostess, and cocktail waitresses. I had to wear tight clothes, short skirts, and high heels. The boys were bussers, dishwashers, cooks, and waiters. They did not have to dress to impress. Here we asked, have you noticed any different treatment in work professionals environments as a genderqueer person or towards genderqueer individuals? And she replied with, again, things have improved massively, but there is still room for improvement, of course. In my earlier years, people would use slurs or might openly denigrate someone who was genderqueer. While this is less likely to happen now, there are still environments where this still happens today. Next question. What kind of activities did you participate in as a child? And her reply was, she was on a track team, she played trumpet in a band, sewed, and read many books. Her parents were very supportive and that helped encourage her to participate. How do you believe sexist stereotypes change children's upbringings? How can we change this? Start the dialogues early. Discuss, model, and teach kids how to question things and look at all sides of issues. Watch what your kids are exposed to. The internet, YouTube, movies, etc. Model acceptance, equality, and openness. How do you think young men and women are raised differently? What are the effects of this, while society is seemingly somewhat improved? Compared to my youth, that young men and women should not be treated differently. Let's face it, there are often conscious and subconscious expectations. How do you believe non-binary people experience sexism? They face discrimination in society, and in some countries, their lives are at risk. Are you familiar with the term non-binary? She replied with, yes, I am familiar. I have family members who are a part of the LGBTQ+ community. Have you ever seen and experienced sexism on a regular yet subtle basis? Yes, I have seen this, but I would say on a more regular basis. One never knows when you're going to overhear something or suddenly find yourself in a conversation when someone is being mean, cruel, unkind. How do you believe this affects one's self-esteem? These subtle, sometimes rude, sometimes can be absolutely soul-destroying to one's self-esteem. As a non-binary person, how have sexist ideologies been pushed on you? When I was younger, sexist ideologies were endemic in the fabric of life. Sometimes it felt pushed on me, but what was worse were many times when it was rather insidiously woven through stands of society, having expressed that you do believe you experience different sexist treatments. I would say yes, especially in my youth.